If you are experiencing yeast infections, I have a client session that I want to share with you, and she gave me permission in case it supports you on your journey. Now, this is very specific, what's going on energetically. So we need to use our intuition, discernment to ask yourself, do I feel like this is me? Because honestly, there could be a million different reasons for having continuous yeast infections, but I did want to come on and share in case it does help you. So when I went into her energy field, I told, I thought it was really fun. I told her, I was like, I didn't see you taking a bath because that's not appropriate. It was more feeling that you were in the other room, like in the bathroom taking a bath. And I said, what are you doing in there? And she said, I'm taking a bath to soothe my skin. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. Kind of like when you have the chicken pox and you're taking an oatmeal bath. My grandparents did that for me and my sister when we had the chicken pox. And so I asked her if she wanted to go see what was going on with the yeast infection. She said yes. And this is when we went to the woods to kind of bathe in Mother Nature's medicine. She put on elven clothes, like kind of like the Lord of the Rings, but also armor. And I said, hey girl, what you doing? You look like you're about to go to war. She said, well, you just never know. And at that point, I had an inclination that the yeast infection is a defense mechanism from her body, a safety precaution, an indicator that something is in misalignment. So as we're walking, you know how you're swinging your arms? I saw her left hand and I said, hey, can I see that? And she put it in my palm and I'm reading it. She said, are you giving me a palm reading? I said, no, not really. So what I'm doing is looking at the meridian lines in your hand. So that's the energetic pathways of your chi flow or your ki flow. And I said, there's something that's stuck in here. So if you look right here is where I found the crystalline or hardened energy. And per this chart, which is an acupuncture chart, it's the throat and the esophagus. Now that is something we have actually been working on together over a multitude of sessions, is throat chakra healing. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I said, do you want to go in and take a closer look? And she said, yes. So we actually astral projected into her hand to take a look at the crystalline energy. And it looked like we were in a cave, which oftentimes when I'm doing that in people's organs, that's what it looks like. And you know, stalagmites that grow from the ground and they look like these big giant crystals in a cave. Well, these were actually coming down from the ceiling. I don't remember what those are called. It's something else. Kind of like stalagmites coming down. I said, let's go take a closer look, like through a magnifying glass so we can see where this first started. And then I heard her higher self say fermentation, which is really funny because we're talking about yeast. So it's kind of like a silly kind of pun, but something has been fermenting and solidified as like trauma in this area. And I heard taking things too personally, taking on other people's self-projections of not feeling good enough. So as somebody who is very empathic, very sensitive, something that her and I had discussed of in childhood, she kind of had a rough go of it and her parents were just not meeting her needs, which made her feel some type of way about herself. And then what ends up happening, because I have experienced that as well, what ends up happening is you attract people who also don't feel good about themselves because that's the frequency that you're resonating on. It's not our fault. That's just how it works. And because that's what you're comfortable with. And it's triggering to be around very confident people when you don't feel good about yourself. And so you subconsciously surround yourself with people that have a little bit of a lower self-concept. But again, same. And what the other side of that though is if you're very empathic and you don't know that you are when you're a child, you end up taking on how other people feel about themselves. So not only are you feeling that way about you, but now you're getting blasted in the face with it from all of these other children who are also still figuring themselves out and may have experienced that themselves in their own childhoods with their parents or guardians. And so you're just getting inundated with not feeling worthy, but a lot of that's not yours. And what I was telling her is that it wasn't until I became an adult and realized that I was very empathic and psychic and neurodivergent that a lot of the anxiety and depression that I was experiencing was not all mine. Like, yes, a lot of it was, but I was around so many people that was also experiencing that I was just absorbed in so much of it, and I could hear people's thoughts being psychic, their subconscious thoughts. And I was really good at behavioral pattern recognition, and I thought that I needed to keep myself on a lower self-concept because I didn't want to be conceited or braggadocious, and just obviously everybody feels this way about themselves, so I need to feel this way about myself. It becomes this really entangled yarn ball, and then as you become an adult, you may still be attracting people like that. And then as you go on your self-awareness journey, healing journey, spiritual journey, you start coming up out of that, and you become a lot more confident and self-assured, and you start holding energetic boundaries, and then other people's emotions are not influencing you as much. But she is taking on clients, and I said that's something I had to be really mindful of. Just because they're going through something doesn't mean that I am, because sometimes we can get in this like attracts like, which is true, of if they're coming to me for this problem or issue, or not even clients, like maybe your family members, your friends, you're like, oh, I must be going through that because we're resonating on the same frequency. Not necessarily. Sometimes they're coming to you because you're a teacher and a mentor and a guide. The like attracts like is them resonating with a younger version of you saying, I do understand you. I'm not going to meet you on that frequency that you're on. I'm going to help pull you up to the one that I'm at, but that means that you have to exude confidence and not say, well, they feel bad about themselves right now, so I need to feel bad about myself and meet them in that place, because that's not beneficial for anybody. You got to stand strong in your sovereignty, empowerment, and confidence, and say, I am going to observe what is going on in this conversation or this session, but I'm not going to absorb that, because it's really easy to get pulled into other people's paradigms and their beliefs and their values when you're a empathetic person or a sensitive person, because you want to be able to step into their shoes to see how they really feel, and that used to be a version of you. And so it's real easy to snap back into that, and you have to say, no, I'm experiencing what I am deciding to experience over here, even if everybody is experiencing something different. I'm going to hold the line and I'm going to ask you to meet me over here. I'm not going to, I don't want to say allow myself, but I'm not going to move into a different frequency to meet somebody where they're at. I'm going to stay in mine and ask them to meet me here. And because this crystalline energy has to do with our throat chakra connectivity with the yeast, it's how you're expressing yourself in the world and to other people. And so we have to be really mindful of being sovereign in our own feelings and emotions and our beliefs, and not kind of falling back into old ways of being just because other people are still in that chapter. And something that you can do is, what do we wish for them to experience? What reality do we prefer to see them in? Not from like a controlling mechanism, but you can shift into parallel realities where this family member, this friend, or this client is living in their most preferred reality state, and you can help get them there from your own mind. But that means that you need to be confident in self and feel worthy of, oh yeah, we're both going to be living in this reality together. I'm going to help move them into the one that I am in. How would I prefer to see them instead? How do they want to see themselves instead? But I can also help get them there by envisioning that for their life. So I would love to hear in the comments if this gave you a little bit more awareness about what might be going on with this physical symptom of the yeast infection, of it's from absorbing too many people's emotions and feelings when you're already up out of those chapters in life, and just being consciously aware of that will start to dissipate a lot of that in your energy field with the yeast infection. Not necessarily saying it's going to cure it overall, but it will start to shed a lot of energetic layers. If you have some other health related things going on and you want me to take a look-see what's going on, you can find resources for that in my bio, and I'm wishing you an absolutely magical day.